Local people, important issues. CBS 10 WILM's weekly focus on the Lower Cape Fear region. This is Byline Wilmington with your host, Don Ansell.
Well, on December 1st, 1996, Rick Hairston met an 8-week-old puppy, one of a litter of 13, that he eventually named Moses, and it was on that day that Carolina Canines for Service got its start. Rick is joining us this morning for this fascinating story of training and placing these service dogs who enhance the lives of people with disabilities. And I have to be transparent, I've known Rick for a long time.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate
and I've
you having us.
watched this journey that you've been on. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're going to talk about a big event that's coming up this coming Saturday. But let's start out from the beginning about the day that you met with Moses, that little puppy, and how Carolina Canines for Service got off the ground.
Well, we moved into Wilmington 2 days before Hurricane Fran. That was our introduction to Southern hospitality. We joke about that a lot. We met a lot of great people during that time, and that's what actually made me fall in love with Wilmington. And we started praying. I had volunteered with a group in St. Louis for several years, moved out here, and we were just going to volunteer for another group.
That trained service dogs?
Correct. And moved out here, and we were just going to volunteer for another group, and there wasn't any in North Carolina at that time. And started praying, and finally came to the conclusion that this was what God wanted us to do, and that's how we got started.
And I read somewhere that you were, and now I see it's because Fran had just blown through. You when you went to look at these litter of puppies, you were tromping through mud.
Literally knee deep in mud.
Knee deep in mud, yeah.
And
so you find this. So now you're looking for a dog to train. Is that what?
Yep. And that was how we started. And Moses.
So you found this litter of 13 puppies.
Yep.
And how did you pick the one?
Well, we have a very elaborate temperament test that we do now, and that night it wasn't very elaborate. We were outside. I had my geo tracker. And we had the headlights on bright and knee deep in mud, and we were holding them up and looking at like, okay, I like this one. No, I don't like this one. And
he was the friskiest.
Moses was the second. He was the friskiest and the largest.
Yeah, and the largest.
And that was
By the way, I don't know if the camera is picking up Titus, but Titus is here. He's also a service dog that you've trained.
Correct. And
we'll talk more about Titus. And so, what is if you had to consolidate your mission, what would you say?
It is to enhance the lives of people with disabilities by training specially placed dogs. Placing specially trained dogs. Right, easy for me to say.
Have you always had what I would call a special connection to dogs?
To dogs, yes,
yeah.
Always have. And then it's just been able to match the love that we've had for people with the love that we have for dogs and be able to make a perfect match. Did
you have pets growing up?
I did.
Yeah.
We normally had little beagles and things of that nature, but that was in an era where you owned a dog, but they pretty much could roam the neighborhood free with no problems. And so we had a whole host of dogs over at the house all the time.
And I have a connection to animals. What do you think that the connection is between dog and man?
I think it's the unconditional love they have. They don't care what you look like, what kind of clothes you have, if you are the high designer fashion person, or if you're low-end income and you can just barely put shoes on your feet. Dog doesn't care. All they care is about how you treat them and what you're going to be able to do with them.
So you built this organization, started in 1996. Moses was your first dog.
Correct.
And how did you learn how to train? Did somebody train you to train?
They did. I volunteered with a group in St. Louis for about 2.5 or 3 years before moving out here. And the neat thing about training is you never finished. You know, you're always learning new techniques. You're learning something different. Here's a better way to teach that. And so it's a matter of taking the technique that John has and the technique that Bob has, and neither one of them fit, or they both fit what I like personally, melding them together.
And is it different? Are there different techniques and maybe different nuances to training depending on a breed or the individual dog?
It's more on the individual dog. Each of them have a temperament and a personality just like we do. And so you'll have a dog that we may call soft that you can't make a correction on. And so then you have to figure out what is it what his motivation is, how can I use his motivation to get him to do what I want, because everything we do is a natural movement.
So you have to strategize a little bit on.
Sure.
on
and each individual
handling.
dog is different.
How long does it take to average to train a dog?
Our two programs, our civilian program is 2.5 to 3 years, and we start with foster families, and we start with a puppy, and so you have the growing up stage and the very beginning stage.
If you pick a puppy and they're not ready to start training, you put them in a foster home.
When they are ready to start training.
Oh, when they are ready.
We start them at 7 to 8 weeks.
Oh, really?
And if they follow
So they live with a foster family
Exactly.
while you're training them.
Exactly. And the foster family agrees to pay all the bills for the dog. They come to a class that we teach once a week, and we teach them what to train the dog. And then they go home and they have the opportunities then for that period of time to work on those specific issues that we're dealing with the dog. And then they come back and we start the next week and we start
So
a
they'll
whole new
become your
set.
training assistants.
So they are basically our training assistants.
Yeah,
and we work with them for 18 to 24 months. Then they have the easy job of giving the dog up, and it comes back to us for the advanced training.
How hard is that for these foster
It's
families?
gut-wrenching.
I imagine.
And in all honesty, I want it to be. And while it may sound harsh and cruel, what happens is if it's hard for them, it means they've learned to love the dog.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then the opposite is also true. The dogs learn to love the person. And so then all of a sudden, it's not a matter of being rewards, it's a matter of pleasing somebody. And then we can take that and we can transfer that bond 2 or 3 different times till we get to the final product and it is actually placed with a partner.
Can you determine what makes a good service dog when you meet an animal?
There's a lot of the temperament, but there's that physical and that human connection that you're going, there's something about this dog that I really like.
Just a gut, something in your gut.
Yeah.
And that's the...
And some of it's numerical value, because
Right.
like I said, we have a temperament test that we give that's scored, but then there's part of that we'll look at and we'll go, there's just something about this dog that I really like.
Do you ever get a dog and you start and it just doesn't work?
Sure.
That happens?
Sure. You know,
Often?
and the comparison is you can use your public school systems or you can use the military. You know, everybody that goes in has a physical capability, they pass the initial test to get in, and there's some of them that it just doesn't work.
What's the percent, would you say?
The percent that doesn't make it because we can't get them trained is probably 3 or 4%.
That's not...
Now, there's other physical issues that may come
Right.
along later that prevent that from happening.
Right.
And then you get down to the end of training, and then there's some of them that just decide, you know, I don't want to work for a living. And you know, those again are about 2 or 3%, but it does happen from time to time.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, stay with us. We're going to meet Ed Salau, who is a veteran of the Iraq War, and his service dog, Gabriel. And we'll talk more about this fascinating subject of man and dog. Stay with us.